And everyone everywhere, Tampa Motormouth in the zone behind the microphone, along with...
Flying Ryan Gilchrist here with you.
Right, that's when you go take two and action, and you press the delete key, and that episode is gone. But how are y'all doing as? Can you believe it's already week number 3 in the NFL?
Week 3, lots of action in week 2 to get to. Some surprises, some not so surprises. A little bit of controversy, but we had some storylines come out since the end of week 2. One from baseball.
With Escobar being suspended 3 games because he had coming out with eye black on his eyes that had Spanish words that apparently were a gay homophobic slur. And all of a sudden, it's just like with everything that's going on in baseball and the climate. Then the other one that was fairly publicized was, if you remember, Delman Young got into it earlier in this year. Apparently, outside the hotel, it was classified as a hate crime. So, all sorts of craziness going in. So, Escobar is out 3 games. Although I seriously doubt that affects the Blue Jays playoff, and they've already been eliminated.
No, I don't know the Spanish word for jackass, but I know the Spanish word for stupid, estupido. Way to go, bud.
Yeah, because it's just the whole thing of whether it was, I've heard it could have been like a harmless prank. And, he didn't know, like the whole, whenever you send out a tweet, apparently the thing now is if you're a figure or an athlete, my phone was hacked. Somebody hacked my phone. So for that first take, maybe we should say somebody hacked our show.
Yeah, somebody hacked our show.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Impersonating us, and that's why it was a bunch of rambling for 8 minutes and we deleted it.
Yeah, we can, maybe we hacked ourselves.
Probably. But the problem is people, especially figures in sports and people who have Twitter accounts that have thousands upon thousands of followers and overinflated egos, don't like to admit they're wrong. And I think I've talked about this before. When you screw up, just come out and say, sorry, I screwed up. And a lot of people will go, all right, you're human, it happens. But if you're going to come out...
Accountability.
You're going to come out and put a homophobic slur right under your eyes, that's on you. You're not getting held down and forced into anything. No, I mean, you speak Spanish, you know what that word says. It's not like they pinned you down, threw you onto the field, and somebody caught it, and you're like, no, I don't mean it. You did it. You're an idiot. And you deserve to be suspended, you deserve to be fined, and I'm sure it'll get protested against. I mean, that's kind of a hot-button topic, the whole gay rights thing, going into politics.
Because the Blue Jays are a fairly visible team. Not only are they very hugely popular in Canada, I'd also say they're pretty popular in the United States.
Well, they're in probably the deepest, most fan-faring division of baseball.
Talked about today.
Yeah, with Boston, Baltimore, Tampa, and the Yankees, of course, all in it with the Blue Jays. The only team in Canada anymore, so you're going to be Canada's team by default. And you're going to come out and do that, and...
Because not only is he representing the Blue Jays, he also is, you could say in a way, representing all of baseball. Because baseball is the parent umbrella organization that they all work for.
Yeah, and he is a Latin American player, so he's representing a large group of the players culturally also by doing something this stupid. So that was not a well-chosen activity or... attire, I guess. Well, not well chosen attire.
I guess eye black could be. Yeah, I would consider eye black.
Like, I'm not one of those people who thinks you should be painting, numbers or words in your eye black, like "Hi Mom" or 305, like some players do in Miami. But that's just dumb. That's just oh, that's cool, that's okay, it's silly. What he did is just wrong and idiotic, and I'm glad he's going to be suspended, even though, like you were saying, the Blue Jays' playoff hopes are not going to take a hit because they're already bye-bye.
No, not that the Rays' playoff hopes are all that much better, but we'll say that for another segment as we get into what we were talking about without rambling on quite as much about as we did in the other theoretical podcast that has now been deleted and is somewhere out there in another quantum reality.
This is not the podcast you were looking for.
Ryan just did it for you Star Wars fans out there. As Ryan pointed out to me, I just waved my hand. There's a specific way.
There's a specific finger location,
this is audio,
hand structure that, yes, you have to imagine it. but I'm going to do it, and it's going to be in your head because it's the Jedi mind trick. So you saw it, but you didn't see it.
Well, something to think of
True
in case
fact.
we ever decide to cross over into video. But I think I definitely like the whole audio. But one thing that we're briefly talking about is to sort of share in case you kind of wonder if you're out there and you're like us and maybe, and in this day and age, you definitely always have to be thankful for being employed and having employment. But when it's Sunday, I think the football fan in everyone always has one question. How is their team doing? How are their picks doing? And how is their fantasy team doing? Because I think it could be said that fantasy football might have crossed over into mainstream.
Yes, it has. And there's two ways to look at it if you're working on a Sunday. Depending on where you work, some places are open, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. You don't see anything that day. You might catch part of the Sunday night game or something you've recorded, or you're just watching highlights. And then there are places that are open, maybe noon to 6. You have a DVR, you can catch an early game, save it, which I usually will do with the Dolphins game because they're on at 1. I'm usually
I bet you enjoyed this week's game.
Oh, I enjoyed it, and I got to watch it live, so that was also good. But then you can come home, you can watch, if you don't mind finding out the score, you can watch part of the second set of games, where you can watch the DVR game and be ready for the Sunday nighter.
Well, there's something that, and with me, it's kind of a whole attention span thing. Because when you, of course, name shuffle, sport shuffle, with me, as Ryan can attest, my brain is sort of all crazy all the time. Meaning, it's like everywhere at once. And with me, I'm sort of a numbers guy, and I look at the end numbers, and you can kind of stand there, but you can only really stand there talking about somebody about a game from a numbers perspective only so much, because it gets to the point, because you have people who watch the games or break down, or maybe you're talking to somebody who at some level has actually played the game of football, and then it's a different perspective because they're thinking about different plays. How did this player do? How did the offensive line do? How did the defensive line do? And numbers, because I've only watched the first half of the Bucs-Giants game, but numbers are only one dimension of the whole game, because you see things, for example, like why was LeGarrette Blount in there for only a little while, especially if you have him on the bench of your fantasy team and you're wondering, should I keep him? Should I drop him? Or the other things such as Cruz was on an absolute mission, dominating the Bucs. Every throw Eli sent was almost to Cruz, and maybe one to P. Mixon. Then there was a brutal helmet-to-helmet hit that was just boom, and it was the Buccaneer that I believe it was Hickson, who later was out of the game. And then you had the pick six and Eli threw at the end of the first half that Eric Wright just telegraphed that one into the end zone. Then there's even one play with the Giants that Cruz could have broken and made the Bucs pay even more, but if he hadn't tripped, that could have been another touchdown. And I'm realizing that in the other dimension, when you actually watch the game, even though it's hard, because it's tough when you are watching a game that you already know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I with San Jose Sharks games, usually it kind of go a little late because they're West Coast, or I was working at a newspaper, which is an overnight job. You would do everything you could to not find out the score because you don't want to go home and have the game ruined. Be like, oh, okay, the Sharks lost 4-3. I don't want to watch them lose. And you go, all right, screw it. So you, like I said, there's two mentalities on Sunday how to deal with football. You either ignore it completely, you don't check your fantasy score, you don't check the team scores, you don't check anything, you try and have a complete media blackout, or you just say, well, I'm not going to see it anyways. Let me at least know what's going on, so I can kind of keep an eye and keep a rooting interest in it. I prefer to try and do the complete media blackout because, like I said, I can record the Dolphins game and watch them later. And, the fantasy scores are going to be there later. You look at them at a certain point, that doesn't tell the whole story. Like you're saying, you look at the numbers, it doesn't tell the whole story. And we'll kind of get into that when we go into the recap from Week 2 here in a minute, going a little deeper into the Bucs game, the over-talked last play. We'll get into in a little bit. But it's been a tough week for Tampa Bay. A lot of media scrutiny over the Bucs at the end of that game. The blown 14-point lead late.
Oof.
And the Rays.
Because when you're watching the first half, I haven't watched the second half, so I'm almost cringing to see how they're going to choke that away.
Yeah, and the Rays. You can't forget, it is still baseball season in Tampa Bay, but it's starting to look like we have about 2 weeks left.
Apparently a lot of the bats have forgotten it's 2 weeks left.
Yeah, the Rays went from, I believe, 1 or 2 games back of first in the wild card to now 5.5 back of first and 4.5 in the wild card. And the big question, are they done? Do they have what it takes to come back into it?
Well, definitely have to. I hate saying stick a fork in them. That seems to be the general feeling, I'd say, out there and on the internet, that the mathematical dagger had to have been that weekend. You go up to New York, you have to pull out a miracle, and they did the reverse of that, losing 2 out of 3 games. At least they didn't get swept, and you come back in. Here's the Red Sox, a team they really should beat on paper, and what's already happened?
They're down 2-0 in this series. I mean, you got to look before the New York series. They went to Baltimore, got swept. They've lost 7 of the last 8 to divisional opponents, 2 of which they went 5 out of 6 losing against the 2 teams in front of them. And you look at how far back they are now. That's what's doing it right now.
And the whole point, because I remember last week, was like, well, did Baltimore lose? Did Oakland lose? And there comes a point that the whole scoreboard watching becomes totally irrelevant if you're not winning as a team.
Exactly. The Rays, at this point, need to almost play perfect the rest of the way out. Now, the Rays are good at that last season heroics, come from behind,
last
make
year,
the playoffs,
162,
make the game count. But the magic doesn't seem to be there this year. And I know that without Longoria for 2 months or so in the middle of the season, this team is a different team. Maybe if he's there the whole season, we're not in this situation. We're the ones running and hiding in the division. I know they were a sub-500 team without him. So that could be a difference. The pitching's gone downhill. Well, pitching will go through ebbs and flows along with batting. But when they're both as bad as they've been lately, you're just asking for trouble. And the Rays have been finding it. They have lost, like I said, 7 of the last 8.
One-run games to Rays in one-run games.
And that's the thing. They're close in about half of these games. The other half of the games are getting blown out. It's not like they're staying close, losing late, or being ahead and blowing. It's like there's a lot of games they're just not even in it. You know, Baltimore won a 9-2 game Boston last night. I mean, they kind of ran away later. They've had some losses where it's like, well, did you show up and did you go to the right stadium? I mean, this isn't going to be Legends Field or George Steinbrenner Stadium or, you know, the Tampa Bay Times Forum. You're supposed to go to the Trop. You're supposed to stand by the Pentagon-shaped area and swing the bat and hit the ball. And if you're a pitcher, you're supposed to throw it over that Pentagon-shaped area, known as home plate, and not let the other person hit it. As you were mentioning off-air, Ellsbury, I think, just got a cream puff on a 3-1 pitch, and bye-bye. There goes the lead. There might go our season.
And that's probably what sparked the whole Molina and Cobb going at it. That made a little bit of problem. But doing an audible click, 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 back to what we were talking before, then we'll switch back to baseball, was that hole with the end of the Bucks game, because it's something that we still definitely have to answer, and was it an unwritten rule that if they're in the victory formation and they had other potion that might work well, I guess, in the Division 1A level, but when you're at the pros, is it like stuff in baseball? Like there's an unwritten rule, like not bunting if there's a perfect game being pitched, for example. You know, what do you think about that whole, with all the controversy that it ended up creating?
Well, I don't like unwritten rules. I think that they are kind of stupid. If they were meant to be rules, they would have been written. Now, the fact of the matter is, if it was a 27-point game, there was no chance the Bucks could do anything in that situation to win, I would say it was a pretty classless act. Now, having watched Greg Schiano's teams when he was at Rutgers, being a USF student and USF fan, I do know his mentality is you stay working for 60 minutes. You play whistle to whistle. You don't play after the whistle. You don't play before the whistle. You play between the whistles. You play between the stripes. And you do everything you can to win within the rules of the game to the best of your ability. Of course, there's going to be holding and pass interference calls, but you don't go and start throwing punches or, like we saw in the Redskins game, throw the ball at the guy you called out as being a dirty player the week before and costing your team a possibility to tie. If you want to go and make a play like that, there's situations you have to be in. I mean, you can't be down 27. Then it's just dirty. you have to be close. They had time. They were on the 30-yard line. The Giants were on their own 30 at the time. So if that ball comes loose, they get it. Time's not going to expire. They had 5 or 6 seconds on the clock. Quick. He was down. They had 4 or 5 seconds to run off after he went down. So quick fumble. They're going to have time to at least throw one in the end zone and try to tie the game. So it's not like they didn't have a reason. 2, and I've heard a few people say this on the major networks, the Bucs didn't line up like you see in the victory formation defense, where they're all kind of standing half trying. Mostly they snap, they stand up and stand there. The Bucs were lined up ready to go. They were down low. The Giants didn't see it. They didn't protect themselves. I do think that, in a way, and I've heard a few players say the quarterback in that situation will come and say, we're taking a knee, let up, and the defense has the option to either go okay or not. And if the defense says no, you got to strap the chin strap and actually be ready to take a block, because they're coming at you. So I tend to side with Schiano. I mean, I do think that the Giants, if they really want to have a fit about it, which they clearly do, they can make the case. And I'm not coming as a Bucs fan point of view, because I'm not a Bucs fan. But I do think that if they weren't ready for it, the Giants were not ready for it, that could have been a fumble very, very easily. You had 2 Bucs going around the side. No, Talib was going around the outside. If the ball comes loose, he might pick it up and run it in. If not, he'd just, recover it and give Freeman a chance to lob it in the end zone.
So should the Bucs, in that case, should the Bucs expect exactly what they give getting back down the road?
I would be shocked if nobody does that to him if it's a close game. Now, if it's a 30-point game and someone wants to charge the Bucs line, I expect there to be some really, really bad violence after. Because, like I said, that's a little dirty. It's unnecessary. What's it going to achieve?
There's no reason at all. There's no hope.
Exactly. You saw after the game, they were upset, but nobody was like, well, it was a dirty play. They couldn't do anything. It's like, yeah, it was a little unwanted. But if it works, everybody's going to go, wow, that was such a brilliant plan. If they can get that ball back, and even if they just get the ball back and don't score, they go, well, they at least had a shot. What a great plan. It didn't work, and that's why it's looked at as maybe a dirty play. It didn't work. But all in all, I think the Bucs will have to be ready, and I frankly don't see it being a problem, because they'll go, well, we expect teams to do that to us now. So on the last play, be ready to block. If they don't come at you, what's the harm going to do? You're going to stand up all quick and stand there? Or you can not be ready and then get your knees cut.
And another line of reasoning, and then we'll sort of put this one to rest, because I'm sure this is something everyone has probably had enough of this week, is that another line of reasoning somebody I was talking to brought up that, okay, that may be acceptable to do at the Division 1A level, but what about at the pro level when you're talking about people who are getting paid millions of dollars to play a game? Is there any difference?
No. I actually think when you're being paid millions of dollars, you need to expect more risks. Because you're doing it for free, you're doing it for the love of the game, you're not guaranteed anything.
More risk for the more reward.
Mm-hmm. More risk, more reward. The pro, you're going to have millions of dollars, whether or not they come in and put your knee backwards or not. The college senior, might be a 3rd, 4th round draft pick. Somebody does this, throws their knee, tears a couple ligaments. Their entire shot at the NFL might be done right there. So I think it's a little more risky in college for the players instead of the pros, because the pros, they have access to all the best medical, all the best trainers, and they already have the money to take care of it, where college students, they might not.
True, and we'll put this one to rest and go on to other interesting sports stories that we've heard. Of course, we have to mention the fact that Michael Turner, and I don't know how interesting is maybe stupid, DUI, here it is, middle of the season. Well, not the middle of the season, start of the season. The middle of the start of the season. There we go. I can rescue myself there. And here he is, DUI, doing something crazy in the 65-mile zone, middle of the night. Of course, you're going to get popped, and you sort of have to wonder what the suspensions are going to be. And is it just sort of one of those things where you question? It's like, why? I mean, in the off season, bad enough, but during the season?
Oh, the players don't like to think. I mean, anytime they go drinking, and this is something that if you talk to a lawyer, they will tell you when people, and in specifics men, drink, they do stupid things. That's pretty much a law of science and physics and nature. If you do something to screw your brain up, you do dumb things. And that's exactly what happened. It will be interesting to see if and what punishment there is. I don't remember Michael Turner really having a prior history, so this might be kind of a warning. You get a fine and put on like a watch list, probationary type of thing. I don't think we get suspended for this, but it's just not smart. It's not quite coming out with a homophobic slur on your face, but it's pretty close. I mean, it almost seems suicidal what he was doing more than anything. So, just another way to look at it.
And then the interesting story that we would have to say with all of the referees, because you've had one ref that was apparently paid to officiate a NFL team's practice. Then you've had another NFL referee that was yanked from the Saints game because it was found on his Facebook page that he was a Saints fan. He was yanked. And now, reportedly, because I'm not sure if this one, I don't believe it's been verified as of yet, but reportedly, replacement referee ended up telling Deshaun Jackson, "I need you today for my fantasy team."
It's just not smart. These replacement refs are really ruining some of this game. The integrity of the game. We've heard a few other people say it. And if you're going to be given, you expect them to still go in and be professional, but to say that is out of line. It does throw an issue into the integrity of the game. Are these people doing it for the right reasons? Are they calling it the right way for the right reasons? And last week wasn't a good week for him. There was a lot of calls that were questionable, missed, called that were just blatantly wrong. I mean, there was a pass interference call in a couple games where the guy literally never got touched, and they called pass interference. So you gotta wonder, is it because maybe this guy has this receiver, or this offense, or something like that? You never know. And the more you hear about stuff like this, like the guy who was paid to ref Seahawks preseason practice games, I don't think he's biased. I think he's getting a paycheck. Now, it just so happens he ref the Cardinals-Seahawks game, and there's a big controversy giving the Cardinals, or giving the Seahawks an extra timeout. I don't necessarily think that was a setup. I think it was a screw-up. But I don't think that was as bad as the one who's a Saints fan blatantly, or this one saying, "I need you for my fantasy team."
Because I remember somebody, one of the major radio shows, ended up somebody said, try to go easy on that was the Saints Panthers. No, who was it? Saints Panthers. And somebody ended up putting on their Facebook page, the referee's Facebook page, try to take it easy on my Panthers today. Ha ha. So that's called. I don't know. So that's like the whole thing is that the NFL, and you got to wonder how long they're going to stretch it out, because you already have the NHL lockout. Now you have the situation with the NFL and the referees, and it's like, what is it going to take to have the NFL cave in and give the full-time referees what they want? As bad as we thought they were last year, apparently we are being proven wrong that there are worse referees than that field last year. That I guess you could say the Ed Hockley era of referees, and we want him back.
Yeah, every ref will make a mistake, but not to the extent these are.
And so that's the whole point. So that's just the whole point, is that at what point does the integrity and the mistakes actually start to affect the outcome of the games?
I think to an extent it is. I think that in some of the closer games, you'll see bad calls determine the games. Then in some games, you'll see the escalation of angst and anger and negative feelings.
Teams getting chippy with each other.
Getting chippy because maybe they're not calling things as tight and you're taking out of line shots that you don't need to be taking. So I do think that is a problem that they're going to have to fix. If nothing else, get the refs back or get these new ones in and teach them a little bit more on how to do it.
And with football, what do you think was the Bills and Chiefs game the worst loss of the week?
No, I don't think so. We'll go real quick through the scores from week 2. The Packers topping the Bears 23-10. We kind of mentioned the Giants-Bucks game, 41-34 Giants win. One of the big surprises of the week, I think, is the margin of the Dolphins-Raiders games. The Dolphins 35, Raiders 13. I think there were really three big surprises week one. Of course, the Cardinals winning. I think the margin. I don't think the result, because the Raiders and Dolphins, I think a lot of people thought they were in the same place. The margin and the way, I think, was a surprise. And then you look at the Saints at 0-2. I think those are the big three surprises from week two. But then you have the Texans, pretty predictable, 20-point win over the Jaguars, 27-7. Bengals-Browns, probably a little closer than a lot of people thought. Bengals winning 34-27. You mentioned the Bills and the Chiefs, 35-17 Bills win. The Chiefs have just looked awful so far. Probably the game of the week as far as competition was the Eagles and Ravens, 24-23 Eagles win. 9 turnovers in the first 2 games, 2 1-point victories. Really hard to put a finger on this team and see where they're at, but 2-0 so far. They beat a team in the Ravens that are very, very solid. So, now we'll find out a little more in the next couple of weeks. The Saints going to 0-2 against the Panthers, 35-27. The big upset, I think this might be the biggest upset all year.
Huge.
The Cardinals winning 20-18. We both picked the Cardinals as our reverse eliminator picks, and had this been ESPN where you're going for prizes, we go. Gone. So, a big upset, and I don't think either one of us are upset that we got that wrong, because myself being a Dolphins fan, the Patriots losing is always a good thing, and I think a lot of people are kind of tired of seeing the same 3 teams from the AFC, the Colts, the Steelers, and the Patriots, go into the playoffs, be the team representing the AFC. They want to see some new teams, like the Texans, or even the Jets at this point.
I'm surprised no one created a Tom Brady's nose parody account on Twitter.
I'm sure they will. But, people want to see some new teams. So it's good to see the Patriots go down, I think, for a lot of people, but just a big upset. The Colts, Andrew Luck getting his first win over the Vikings, 23-20. The Redskins losing to the Rams, that big play at the end where the receiver chucks the ball at Cortland Finnegan out of frustration. Early in the week, he had said, you can't be the second guy in against Cortland Finnegan. You know he's going to take cheap shots, but the second guy who gets caught, you can't do that.
Cortland Finnegan being Cortland Finnegan.
And lo and behold, he's the one that puts a 15-yard penalty in the field, making the field goal 62 yards instead of 47. 47, unless you're Goskowski, very, very makeable kick. 62, not so much. Rams win by 3, 31-28.
Unless you're Matt Bryan or David Akers.
Yeah, exactly. There's not many kickers that can make a 62, 63-yarder right now. The Seahawks winning 27-7 in a game I predicted and Joel did not.
I don't think anyone saw that Seahawks win coming.
I saw it coming.
Well, other than
I saw it coming. I told you, the Cowboys are going to have a letdown after that Giants game. That's the biggest game they've probably had in a decade.
Giant letdown? Or
a giant-sized letdown. The Cowboys just had their biggest game going out to Seattle, which is a tough place to play, and laid an egg.
The Bucs know that.
Mm-hmm. Then you had the Jets going into Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh winning 27-10, giving that bad taste out of their mouth from.
Is it Tebow time yet?
I don't even want to hear about Tebow and Tebow time. Let me put it this way. The Jets stink. They had one good week. The Jets are not a good team. And the Dolphins are playing the Jets next week. And we'll see exactly what the Jets are made of. Because the Steelers, not an offensive team. You saw what Reggie Bush did against the Raiders, who have a very, very good run defense. So we'll see what the Jets are able to do next week, and we'll really be able to tell what this team is all about next week.
Yeah, it felt like
them and the Dolphins.
Felt like last decade with that Reggie Bush performance.
Yeah, and then you had the Chargers beating the Titans 38-10. The Titans are just not looking good whatsoever. One of the better games of the week: the Niners 27, the Lions 19, and the Monday Nighter. Manning had a rough first half, almost brought it back, but the Falcons won 27-21.
Yeah, and if you have Eric Decker in fantasy, or even Demaryius, you're probably a little bit disappointed.
A little. Now we'll go to our Week 3 picks. And last week, a quick update. Joel, this is just a straight-up pick. This isn't against the spread.
Yeah, that's hard.
That's really hard. I mean, last week I think I went 7-9 against the spread. You went 5-10 or 5-11. It's not easy when you add that spread in, because I had a few games where, I mean, just for example, the Cleveland-Cincinnati spread was 7. It's a push. You lose on that automatically in the game we're doing. So that makes it tough. But straight up, Joel went 7-9. Yours truly 11-5. So Joel's got a little work to do. So we go to our first game, which will be tomorrow night. The Giants at Carolina.
I'm doing my imitation of the raised bats. I'm not hitting right now.
Oh, that's sadly true. But in the first game, who do you have?
First
Giants,
game,
Carolina.
Yeah, Giants, Carolina. I gotta say the Giants keep rolling. The Panthers, well, they're the Panthers.
It's a tougher game. I think the Giants will win. I think they're the better team. I think they're going to be rolling after last week. Carolina's got a good team. It'll be closer than I think, but the Giants will win that game. And then you have the Miami.
Will it be by a field goal or a touchdown?
I think it'll be by 10, but I think there's a lot of people that think it'll be a bigger margin. And it might be one of those games where it's a 3-4 point game late. You pull away a little bit at the end. Then we have the Jets at Miami.
And gotta go with the Dolphins with as much as the JTS suck.
Yeah, the Dolphins, in that second half, did not look like a team that was going to be bad this year. Tannehill was going nuts. Reggie Bush was
At least
going...
you're not going to go 0-16?
Yeah. Reggie Bush was going banana sandwiches all over the place, 172 yards. And if you did have Reggie Bush on a fantasy team against you, for example, me, you're going to lose, especially when that guy starting quarterback is Robert Griffin III. You're going to lose.
Because normally you look at that and you're going, Reggie Bush, well, okay.
He's probably a 10 to 20 point guy. That's okay. He gets 45, all of a sudden you're done. So we're both taking the Dolphins there. Then we got St. Louis at
That would be like
Chicago.
playing against Michael Vick as quarterback last year. 50 points. I do remember you did that to me
that was
in one game.
That was a great week. Down 48.
For you.
Monday night guy.
For
Michael
you.
Vick. One game. All right, I'll take it by 5 or 6. St. Louis at Chicago.
St. Louis, well, they're the St. Louis. It's the Rams, Bears. I know, question about Forte, especially if you have him in fantasy, but we're going to go crazy all the time. Bears.
I'm going to take the Rams. The Rams have had 2 good weeks against the Lions. They should have probably pulled that one out, blew it late. Then they won last week against the Redskins.
The Rams are not the Packers.
Rams are not the Packers.
And the Bears did hold the Packers for that first half on defense.
But the game is 2 halves long.
Yeah, I think.
And without Forte, that's going to be a tougher mountain to climb, especially when Cutler and Marshall can't link up whatsoever. Then we look at Buffalo at Cleveland.
I think both of us agree on this one.
Yeah, the Bills are going to take this. And it's not so much that we think the Bills are good. We just think the Browns are bad. Even though Wheaton did have a good week last week, for once. We'll see if that continues or not. Then we have the Buccaneers at the Dallas Cowboys.
And this is kind of a bit of a surprise reversal. I'm a Bucs fan, and as good as they looked at the Giants, Cowboys that had that letdown game that you said, Bucs are going to Jerry's Dome. That's going to be tough. I think it'll be close. Maybe like I would, if I were in Vegas, I'd probably give it a +4 for the Bucs. I think it's going to be close, but ultimately, I see the Cowboys winning.
Yeah, I was thinking around 4.5, so I agree with you on that. But I think the Bucs are going to win. I don't think the Cowboys are what we think they are. I think the Bucs
They are not who we thought they were.
They're not who we thought they were.
Weren't.
But you gotta, and the other Denny Green quote. This is going back after week 1. If you want to crown their ass. Everybody said the Cowboys are this amazing team because they beat the Giants and then laid a stinker egg against Seattle. So everybody goes, well, maybe no, I don't know. The Cowboys stink. Let's be fair. Tony Romo.
So you think Tony Romo is going to start to sink before December?
Oh, I think this team's going to be fairly lousy defensively. I really do. But I think the Bucs should win this game. I would be shocked to see the Cowboys really have a great year. They might be around 500. But for them, utter disappointment there. And we have Detroit at Tennessee.
And both of us agree, and I'm not lying either.
Yeah, the Lions should take it. The Tennessee Titans have gotten blown out both the first 2 weeks. So far, the only team to get blown out both weeks. And the Lions have a good team, even though they haven't showed it yet.
Throw more to Megatron for someone who has Calvin Johnson on 3 freaking fantasy teams.
Yeah.
Yo.
But to be fair, last week they played the Niners and hung tough. They came back, almost had a shot late, but better than it could have been. Better than a lot of teams you'll see against the Niners this year. So, for example,
that were a team that was one heartbeat away from the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have the Jaguars at the Colts.
Colts, definitely.
Yeah, I think the Colts are going to do it again. I think the Colts, right? I said the Colts would be a playoff team, even though I think they'd be the 6th seed. They're playing the Jaguars, who are going nowhere. I think the Colts should win this game fairly easily.
With Rashad Jennings hurt, that means it's all MJD.
For me, since I have MJD on my fantasy team, that's great. But at the same time, it's still the Jaguars. They still have no passing game. We saw it last week. I just don't think they can compete very well with the Colts. But we shall see. The Niners at the Vikings.
As I believe you alluded to on off the air, that Vikings have a ceiling that's kind of low.
Yes.
So got to go with the 49ers.
Yeah, the Vikings ceiling is fairly low. We're not talking about the Metrodome's roof right now. But I got to take the Niners just because the Niners have looked like the best team and the Vikings have not.
Then, of course, we have New Orleans against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Chiefs win just... I can never get enough of using this one. This ain't happening.
Yeah, well, you've been 0 for 2 if you've been using it both weeks. I got to go with the Saints, too.
Saints have to march in sometime.
Yeah, and you look at Carolina's got a good offense. Washington has a good offense. Kansas City does not, so I'm going to take the Saints. Cincinnati at Washington.
Gotta go with the Redskins on this one.
I'm going to take the Bengals just because I think they're the better team. The Eagles at Arizona.
Eagles at Arizona, I think that's kind of a no-brainer. That's the Eagles.
Well, if it's a no-brainer to you, I must not have a brain because I'm taking the Cardinals. This team is 2-0. They've beaten 2 playoff teams from last year. You gotta.
Eagles are switched
on.
Playoff
teams, I should say.
Eagles are switched on.
But they've been throwing the ball to the wrong team, fumbling away. So we'll see. Atlanta at San Diego.
Gotta go with the all-crazy pick with the Chargers, even though I know you think I don't have a brain on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Falcons. They've beat 2 better teams than the Chargers have beaten so far. They've beaten the Titans and the Raiders, and they're both 0-2.
It is the NFL. Any team can win.
Any team can win. It's just not always likely. Houston at Denver.
Gotta go with Denver. They're looking to go. Almost came back in the Monday game like we are talking about earlier. It's the Texans who are not looking like their usual selves. They're on the road at Mile High with that altitude. Gotta go with the Broncos.
Yeah, the Texans haven't looked like themselves. They've only got 2 20-point wins so far this year. They're my Super Bowl pick. I think this will end up being a lot better the second time because I think they'll meet in the playoffs. I think Denver's still getting their act together. So I'm going to take the Texans, and fairly handily, I believe. Pittsburgh at Oakland.
And this one we both agree with a steel curtain covers the Raiders.
Yeah,
easily.
the steel curtain's going to cover that black hole right up. New England at Baltimore, last year's AFC Championship game rematch.
This one is one that we're both raving about, so I think we both agree with that the Ravens will win, even though I'd say this would be one of those minus 1 point, minus 1.5 games.
I would think this is going to be pretty much an even money line kind of thing. You might have a 1.5 to
minus
2 points at best. But the Ravens, both teams have a right to be mad. The Ravens got knocked out by the Patriots last year. The Patriots just got humiliated at home to the Cardinals. And this is something that was unthinkable prior to last week. So both teams are going to come in mad. I think the Ravens will win. I think they're the better team. I think the Patriots might finally be on the way out. And then the Monday night game, the Packers at the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think it's time for the Seahawks to pack it in this week.
I think the Packers are just too strong. It would have been interesting seeing Matt Flynn go up against his former team, but he's not starting. And Seattle is playing pretty well, so it'll be a good game, but I think the Packers will win. And quickly, we are going to do the reverse eliminator pick, even though we were both wrong last week picking the Cardinals.
So would that mean we were both right if it's the reverse eliminator?
No, we were both wrong, because that team actually won.
Yeah, I know. It was worth a shot. But I'm actually going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs as my reverse eliminator pick for this week.
And I'm going to pick the Raiders. I watched them last week against Miami. They looked atrocious. Whenever a running back, people say, can't run between the tackles, runs for 172 yards and a touchdown. Not to mention your backup third-string running back probably goes about 50 yards and a touchdown. Daniels Helms out with a concussion. Miller comes in. He got a touchdown, probably about 50 yards. I'm not sure the exact number. I can probably find it. That kind of says something about what happened you did not do so well when you're giving up a lot of yards to the backup quarterback.
Usually when you're doing that in Madden, you press the reset button.
LaRon Miller, 10 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown. Fantasy speaking, that's an 11.5-point day from a third stringer. I don't think Oakland's got a shot to win this game.
Yeah, you always have to love pop-up commercials.
Yay!
So with the reverse eliminator, and do we want to go into your idea of the Super Bowl of suck, or should we save that for another day?
Well, I'll put that as my final thought. So you go ahead and do your final thought, then if we have time, we'll do some generic sponsors.
That works, and my final thought is, since the week of Sirius passed us, now getting back into, I have to end up saying that I'm really disappointed that my Shuffle Says prediction has not too much of a thought, a mathematical dagger with the way the Rays have been playing or not playing. I don't know what happened. Really disappointed with the weekend, and now with the first two games of Boston lost, when you just put all your energy in rooting for a team, and you just realize that elimination number is going to slowly go down. So I don't know what it is, what happened, if they just all of a sudden threw off a switch, just realized they did the numbers in their head. Who knows? But my final thoughts are, I have to congratulate the Rays. They really just, even to have a meaningful September like they have is a victory in of itself. One would have liked to see the playoff streak continue, and it really has a serious chance of not happening. So, as bummed as I am, raise a glass. Thanks at least for a heck of a year. Sorry it had to end a little bit early. And yes, I am declaring the Rays season officially over. And hopefully that'll come back to bite me and they get in, but I don't see that happening. So it's a bit of a bummer, but that's my final thought. That's what I felt last night as I was trying to pay attention to the game.
Yeah, I think we both agree that we hope that pick comes back and bites you in the butt, which is some Rays October baseball beyond October 3rd at the end of the season against the Orioles, but so far not looking so great
Probably
for that.
In another quantum reality.
Yeah, another quantum reality, the Rays and the Yankees. That's all I'm saying. But for my final thoughts, I'm going to introduce to you, we've gone over the World Series of Suck, which the Astros, not necessarily surprisingly, won. So we're going to do the Super Bowl of Suck. Now, this is my little project, and we will be tinkering with a little more throughout. But essentially, in Week 15, the 8 division last-place teams will be placed into a playoff bracket. The AFC and NFC will each have 4 teams each. Of course, the bottom team from each of the 4 divisions. The team in each conference with the worst record will be the number 1 seed, and then second worst will be second, third, fourth. That makes perfect sense. And then, if there's a tiebreaker, or if there's a tie amongst teams, say 3 and 13. My example is Jacksonville, Cleveland, both go 3 and 13. The first tiebreaker would be a head-to-head. Of course, if the Jaguars beat the Browns would be the 1 seed because they've already lost. The second one would be divisional record. See how you play against people you've played against before. Conference record would be 3rd, point differential 4, turnover differential 5, and if it goes beyond that, we're just going to do a coin toss live on the air the day before Week 15's first Thursday night game happens, and we'll do it that way. Then, and since NFL competition does not equal sort of like the MLB, you can get blown up if you're a star pitcher or throw a no-no if you're a nobody. It's not going to be just by total points scored. It'll be by point differential. And then there's a series of tiebreakers, which I'll get into another time on how to determine if it's both teams win or lose by the same amount. There's tiebreakers. I've got 9 of them listed. We'll get into those a little later. But if you have a team, say Oakland, Cleveland, 0-2, need something to look forward to, Super Bowl of Suck, Sports, Shuffle, you have something to live for into December, into January if you're a fan of a bad team. And we are running out of time, so we're really going to get out of here quick. For the Tampa Motormouth Joel Verlin, I am Flying Ryan. Follow us on Twitter, @SportsShuffle, @ShuffleRyan13. We on.